Colorado, with a few exceptions, stands with Ukraine. We hear from our neighbors who once called that country home. And we hear from an old friend who told us this is an embarrassing and infuriating day to be a Russian. The transportation secretary jets into Colorado, and we have some questions for him about making our roads safer and more functional. And we'll meet the man who makes the state capitol shine.
At each section of the brass run, it takes me like maybe 3 weeks.
All that is next. Russia's unprovoked war on Ukraine is drawing near universal condemnation across Colorado today, where more than 11,000 people from Ukraine now live. Federal sanctions and actions are going to have the most teeth in this, but for what it's worth, Democratic Governor Jared Polis is offering to welcome any Ukrainian refugees, promising the state is not going to do business with Russian state-owned businesses. And he's also asking colleges and universities here to reconsider whether they should work with Russian interests. Supporters of Ukraine gathered at the state capitol in a show of support for that country under attack. Many have family members still living in Ukraine and have been watching the Russian invasion in horror. At today's gathering, we spoke with an attorney who went to law school to defend democracy. And we talked to a DU student who's having a tough time watching coverage of the fighting.
I just sobbed for hours yesterday in my dorm, and all my friends just hugged me. It was terrifying, especially once the footage started coming in of the bombing.
I hope that our politicians on the state, local, and the country level, the president, really take this serious.
Governor Polis says organizations in Colorado are ready to help resettle Ukrainian refugees, but that's a process that could take a long time. Lutheran Family Services Rocky Mountain says they're ready to receive any refugees from Ukraine who might eventually come through the U.S. resettlement program. Say that they have to go through an application process before they come here, and they know that that will take a lot of time. The organization has resettled Ukrainian refugees in the past, but that process has been months or years in the making. The nonprofit was expecting to welcome 4 Ukrainian refugees' families in the next few weeks. They say that may not be happening now based on current events. Lutheran Family Services told us that while people look to the Afghan evacuation and resettlement, that was really not the norm in terms of these processes. It'll be up to the U.S. State Department to determine what happens with Ukrainians. Colorado's elected leaders in Washington were divided pretty cleanly on party lines in their response to the Russian invasion. The Democrats blamed the Russians. The Republicans blamed the Democrats. And the Colorado Republican Party singled out Democratic Senator Michael Bennet specifically as being partially to blame for the Russian invasion because he opposed Russian sanctions. Bennet today called for a united American response.
Putin's assault on Ukraine is an assault on all of us, and it's an assault on democracy. It's a reminder why it's so important for us to pull together as a country.
Republican Representatives Ken Buck and Lauren Boebert called for the United States to produce more oil and gas in reaction to the Russian invasion. And some far-right Republican figures with grassroots followings in Colorado just came out and said they stood with Russia. So it took record-breaking wildfires for enough people to realize that Colorado's firefighters don't have the gear they need. Too many have gear that don't fit them. Boots are too small, breathing apparatus that don't properly protect them against carcinogens. Anusha Roy looks at why this has happened for so long.
For all the fires so ferocious, they earned themselves a name. Career and volunteer firefighters fought them together.
Colorado's fire service protects every community in Colorado, the economy of the state, the tourism of the state, the safety of our citizens.
As much as 80% of the firefighters in Colorado are volunteer, especially outside the metro area. And too often, fire departments, especially smaller or volunteer ones, cannot afford the right gear that can save their lives.
And by not having a mask that they're sure fits them, there is the potential for leaks, which could then introduce these toxic and superheated gases into their lungs, which is a devastating injury. If not fatal.
Whether it happens right away or sometime in the future, they will get sick by not having the appropriate gear.
So these departments look for grants. Some have bake sales and chili cook-offs to fundraise, and firefighters have even bought their own gear. There is a state grant to help, but how much money is available fluctuates every year depending on the budget, falling short of what fire departments need.
No matter what our gear looks like or how old it is, we put it on and we go help those people on their worst day.
Under those conditions, some firefighters have responded to the Marshall Fire, East Troublesome, Grizzly Creek, and the list goes on.
Fire service also has not done the best job of saying what we need.
It's a lot to ask of a largely volunteer group who have their day jobs too. But then research showed the definitive health risks like cancer. And while volunteers are often the first to arrive to many fires, it's the ones that broke records.
So much at stake.
That finally caught enough people's attention.
The proposals that are being discussed in the Capitol today, as we speak, have never been discussed before.
For a while, it's been pretty lonely. We don't feel like we have a lot of advocates out there. So this is exciting knowing that our voices are finally being heard.
So a bill did pass to set aside $5 million to help buy that gear that is now waiting on the governor's signature. It would be open to all fire departments. That is how widespread this issue is, with a little bit more emphasis put on the volunteer and the smaller departments. And there is also another bill under consideration that would work on the long-term funding. Every year setting set amount of money that these fire departments can expect, because that's not the case right now. So it makes planning and fundraising very difficult for them.
So I mean, people know these as their local fire departments, but the state has a great interest in how they operate.
Yeah, 100%, right? We were talking about that sometimes it's fundraising through a bake sale or local dollars that are keeping these departments afloat. But then when you have a huge fire, people from all over Colorado are coming in. So they're looked at as a state asset. And now the state is saying, hold on, we need to fund them better. We need to make sure that they've got what they need to stay safe, because we rely on them in our biggest needs.
Anusha, thank you. So starting today, if you live in Denver, you can pick up free at-home COVID-19 test kits at city rec centers. City's health department says it has 15,000 of the antigen test kits ready to hand out at 29 different places around Denver. All the rec centers except La Alma, because that's currently closed. They limit it to 2 kits per person. Don't worry about bringing ID or anything like that. You don't have to prove that you live in Denver to get one.
How great to see the sun today. We're slowly clawing out of the deep freeze with 21 at DIA, 28 degrees in downtown Denver, and we'll go warmer tomorrow, even with a weak weather system that will cross the state from the northwest. No advisories for snow or travel, and even though the really cold air is sliding east, we'll still run below average with maybe an isolated snow shower here along the Front Range late in the day, and a little bit of light snow from Steamboat down to Aspen. Shouldn't be too impactful for that drive into the high country to get into that fresh powder. Calm, cold, not as cold as last night. Our low at 4 with partly cloudy skies. Friday, high 29, an isolated late day snow shower. And then here we go. 40s Saturday, 50s Sunday, and then into the 60s we go through the middle part of next week. Enjoy.
Governor Polis' statement today on the invasion of Ukraine called on Congress to double down on clean energy so that fuel is not as tied to geopolitical conflicts. He also called on the suspension of the 18-cent per gallon federal gas tax, which you would think would just increase fuel consumption. Not certain what all that has to do with Russia and Ukraine, but Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg was here today, so politics guy Marshall Zellinger asked him about it.
Would you encourage Congress to do one way or the other, keep the gas tax, get rid of it for a while?
Well, again, as an administration, we're looking at all options. That's included actions related to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, actions related to global oil production and what our diplomacy can do there, knowing that the overall price of oil, fluctuating a lot, is set by global markets. We're going to look at everything.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is in Colorado to promote improvements as a result of the president's infrastructure plan passed by Congress. His visit this afternoon was at the base of I-70 in Floyd Hill, which is about to undergo a 5-year reconstruction.
My hope is that the kinds of congestion we've seen in recent months and years here are not in the future for this part of I-70. Now, there's a relationship between supply and demand, and as the director of CDOT has said, you can't always build your way out of congestion. But if we have the right kind of roadways and the right kind of alternatives, then we're going to have less congestion and more convenient trip times.
This stretch of I-70 is also where truck driver Rohel Aguilera Medeiros drove in 2019, making a series of bad decisions before losing his brakes and crashing into stopped traffic in the metro area, killing 4. 9 Wants to Know investigator Chris Vanderveen discovered since 1980, trucking companies only need $750,000 in insurance coverage, meaning that's the amount that would cover any incident. Most families impacted by the I-70 crash received nothing. I asked the secretary if he would support increasing the minimum insurance requirement.
I think we do need to take a hard look at this. We need to look at anything that could affect decisions that bear on safety. Again, not only does there have to be appropriate accountability after something happens, but every measure that we can take in terms of both physical design and policy to make sure that these things don't happen in the first place.
We also talked about electric vehicles. The infrastructure plan comes with billions for more EV charging stations. Buttigieg said that that's necessary to give people confidence to buy electric vehicles so they're not worried about running out of a charge along the way. I like to always point out Polis's first executive order in 2019 was to get 940,000 EVs on the road by 2030. We were at 44,000 in January 2021, and Kyle, last month, 49,000.
Only 900,000 to go. Thank you, Marshall.
Yes, we're going to miss her, but we can't forget what she's done, and we have to keep remembering that as we move forward.
She changed Colorado State University for good.
The brass is the star on the inside, and Chris is basically the road manager for the brass.
The state capitol shines because of one man. We'll meet him next. There are people in Ukraine who are fleeing or taking shelter as Russian troops advance on their cities. And there is a Russian I know well who's not shy about sharing what she loves and does not love about the country of her birth. For years, Anastasia Bolton covered crime and justice here at 9 News. She's from Moscow, has family and friends in both Russia and Ukraine. She told us today that she feels the pain of Ukrainians. And as a Russian, she said she feels helpless and ashamed.
I feel maybe not partially responsible, but I feel embarrassed. I am a Russian. I am from a country of an aggressor. And it is infuriating and it's hard to comprehend. It is incredibly painful. This is not going to wash away. If it's over tomorrow, if it's over a month from now, if it's over from a year from now. What I've been seeing on social media when this first started was the children, hopefully, who survived this are going to be thinking about this their lifetime. The fact is, war like this, any war, it sticks for generations.
If you'd like to hear Anastasia's full perspective on the week's events, we have it posted on 9news.com. The CSU community is reflecting on the life and legacy of Mary Ontiveros this week. The school's founding vice president for diversity died on Saturday. Ontiveros had a 50-year career in education at CSU before she retired last year. She was a CSU alum, served in a variety of leadership positions within the school, from the School of Education to leading admissions. She was CSU's first vice president for diversity. The Coloradoan reports she helped get the scholarship programs going for first-generation and minority students and was a founder of the Multicultural Staff and Faculty Network.
She was a powerful woman, and not in a way that, you know, you walk in and you'd be afraid of her. Like, she would bring people to her. Like, you wanted to talk to her. You wanted to hear her stories. You wanted to ask her advice. And believe me, I called her a lot to get advice.
100 years from now, Mary Ontiveros will be held up as this incredible champion of diversity overall and support for the Latinx community, and not just our students, but also our faculty and staff. She built an amazing network here of support for people long before that was happening on other campuses.
The school announced that it is starting the Ontiveros Latinx Fellowship Program in her honor. It will be available to undergrad students to help fund their education, research, and professional development. Mary Ontiveros was 70 years old.
People tell me every day this building's so beautiful, and like, wow.
One of Colorado's most beautiful buildings sparkles because of him. We meet Chris Martinez, top brass at the Colorado State Capitol, next. bought the naming rights for nothing. The railings and stairwells of the Colorado State Capitol building are always filled with people making and breaking deals. You know, the stuff that you don't always want your fingerprints on, which is why somebody comes by to clean the fingerprints off the Capitol brass every day. Photojournalist Tom Cole went to meet him.
While the shine of the dome on the state capitol building gets a lot of attention,
it's everywhere. It's ornate.
It is the brass on the inside.
It usually takes me like 3 weeks to do all this.
And the brass polisher that gets all the attention.
Chris is somewhat of a celebrity around this building. If you follow him around enough, people know him.
Good morning, Liz. How you doing? Hi, guys. I'll see you pretty soon. See you in a minute, man. I'm on camera.
For 18 years, Chris Martinez has been helping wipe away fingerprints, hand smudges, and elbow rubs.
I'm mostly proud of what I'm doing, make sure it's all nice and clean and shiny.
Most of the brass Chris attends to is on the second floor, where the Senate and House chambers are. It kind of makes you wonder if politics is rubbing off on him, and if he would ever change careers.
Maybe. Maybe.
Rubbing elbows may not be his thing, but history is.
I like the way they lived, how it was, the culture and all. It was wonderful, and I'm really interested in it.
His favorite place to shine? The President's Gallery.
Yeah, the perfect spot. All the people are watching me, all the famous guys. Jay Leno, I call him Jay Leno. He's a member of the Jay Leno family, looks like Jay Leno.
It's sort of an innumerable task, really.
Doug Platt with the Capitol Complex has a pretty polished answer about what all this means to people entering the Capitol.
Anybody who comes to this building will be able to see the amount of love, the amount of care, the amount of attention to detail that they put in to making sure that this is really a showpiece for the state and state government.
As for Chris and his home?
Usually I clean mostly around the weekends. I clean, a really deep clean.
For Next, I'm Tom Cole.
Tell you what, on a miserable day for the world, that was a joy. So, to be clear, there are polishing days and there are cleaning days. The polishing is the deep clean that's done to give it that shine, and then every day goes around and gets out those fingerprint smudges. It's a crosswalk question, and your feedback next. It's a signs actually, that are sending some mixed messages in Arvada. Shailene at these seemingly offsetting signs. One's clearly saying, hey, that's a crosswalk, be careful for the kids. The other one says, no stopping at any time. We can solve this riddle. You stop for the kids. That's what you do. If you see a sign or two that make you look twice, take a photo and email it to next@9news.com or tweet at us using the hashtag HeyNext. A lot of feedback tonight about Russia's war on Ukraine. Mark Cutright asked a question about Colorado's Democratic Governor Jared Polis saying that he doesn't want us invested in any Russian interests. He says, why would we have any investments with Russia anyway? Well, Colorado Treasurer Dave Young, a Democrat within the last 30 minutes, said today's review of our investment portfolio shows that Colorado does not have any investments in Russian state-owned interests. David Lake says whatever happened to politics stops at the water's edge. It is curious the way some people in America are rooting openly for Russia, or at least afraid to criticize them. There are folks who also rooted for the Third Reich and the Confederacy. Didn't work out well.